Where was Peter Rogoff on Election Day? Peter Rogoff is the Sound Transit CEO. He is known for being very aggressive. We've had him on the show. He's known for being very aggressive, very assertive, and doesn't always get along well with people. Remember,
he's criticized for some of the same things that Donald Trump is criticized for. Abrasive, acerbic, what have you.
He either didn't get as much of a raise as that he was in line for, or gave up a raise because of his abrasive personality.
People complained about his behavior around the office, sort of a thing.
So on Election Day, the head guy of Sound Transit was vacationing in France. And now he'll be going on to Rwanda with his wife, who's attending a health conference there. My guess is she would, for all intents and purposes, would rather stay in France.
Quite a junket.
It is.
Europe and then Africa.
Jeff Patrick, who's the spokesman for Sound Transit, said Peter Rogoff, the CEO, took the trip because, quote, he's not had vacation in quite a while, and said the agency was in the very capable hands of Deputy CEO Kimberly Farley. As for the healthcare conference, Jeff Patrick said, this is a conference that he wanted to attend with his wife. It's a very important conference. He was attending with every confidence that the agency is being well run in his absence.
I wonder if Peter Rogoff and his wife are going to take mass transit when they're in Rwanda. Or do you think they'll hire a private driver?
You would think that...
What do you think will happen on that part of the trip?
Not really sure, but I do know that you see that Sound Transit is keeping a very low profile after this election.
Okay.
See, I'm seeing...
They're letting their minions do the work for them.
Exactly.
You got the Dow Constantine minion, you got the Jenny Durkin minion, and I guess...
You've got Jay Inslee, but you don't hear much of Sound Transit. You know why? Because they did some polling, and they found that Sound Transit doesn't poll that well. You know, to remind people of something that I broke here on the show yesterday, we keep hearing from the defenders of Sound Transit, oh, it's unfair that you have a $30 license tab initiative statewide when, let's face it, he's really taking dead aim at Sound Transit here in King, Pierce, Snohomish County. Well, I'll tell you something.
I wouldn't dispute that.
In King, Pierce, Snohomish County, 976 is winning.
Well, and
it's a lot closer, but it's winning in the very areas that are supposedly the ones most served and most advantaged by Sound Transit.
And as we've discussed on programs and possibly podcasts earlier this week, the state legislature, the Democrats in control of the state legislature, had chances to address this problem at the legislative level. They chose not to. So what's the remedy? A statewide initiative.
The Democrats in the House, the Republican Senate did pass a bill. The Democrats in the House refused to even consider it, let alone put it on the floor.
Right.
The reason why the Democrats opposed it is because Peter Rogoff and Sound Transit Board asked them to block it.
There you go.
Their attitude was, we'll just take care of this.
If you're a supporter of money for Sound Transit, if you're one of the Seattle Transit activists or Seattle politicians that's upset with $30 car tabs passing, you can only blame yourselves.
Yeah, no one else to blame.
You had chances to be more fiscally accountable. You chose not to. You end up with Tim Eyman if you choose not to be fiscally accountable. You want to make Tim Eyman go away? Be more fiscally accountable.
It's not even fiscally accountable. There's a personal edge to it. Sound Transit was discovered to be gouging people because they could argue plausibly, hey, people voted for Sound Transit 3, and if they didn't know that they were almost tripling their license tabs, they have only themselves to blame. And, the ballot title was misleading. Well, it didn't spell out what exactly would happen. They still had the vote. It was their choice, their decision, and they made it. That's one thing. What people did not vote for was to have their car deliberately overvalued so they could be overcharged on their taxes. That's what drove people up the wall, and that's what Olympia could have fixed, and that's what Sound Transit asked them not to fix. Yeah. And since the Democratic Party in Olympia, the Democratic legislature is just an arm of Sound Transit, they locked up and refused to do it. Yeah. So this is called reaping the whirlwind.
Sure, yeah. Reaping what you sow, Sound Transit.
Only have themselves.
Sound Transit supporters. You know, Tim Eyman was down at Seattle City Hall yesterday. You talked about this during the show today. And all these transit activists and advocates were there for light rail. And there was a woman holding a young kid, a toddler, maybe 2 years old. And the Como News report said that this particular woman was blind. She was almost tearful, complaining to Tim Eyman, who was standing right in front of her, about, "You're taking this away from me." That's a bogus argument right now. The Sound Transit activists, the House Democrats, as you just mentioned a few moments ago, they were the ones that brought this on supporters of mass transit in Seattle because they refused to deal with the car tab tax valuation that everyone had been asking the state legislature to deal with. So don't blame Eyman. Blame the Democrats that protected Sound Transit.
And not only that, Tim Eyman did not pass 976. Right. The voters passed 976. I mean, this was not a close call. You know, the Sound Transit, the Sound Transit black eye that they have today is richly deserved because of how they've conducted themselves. And I'm telling you, the reason why Sound Transit is keeping a low profile is because the polling out there probably shows that they're not highly regarded.
Yeah, the strategy on behalf of the activists, the mass transit advocates now, is going to be bringing out somebody with disabilities to say, okay, the service for this blind person, this person that's in a wheelchair, is going to result in cuts to their transportation options or busing in Seattle. They're going to bring out the quote-unquote sob story in an effort to draw this emotional reaction that the $30 car tabs are going to ruin things for this group of people. But that's what's going to happen as they try and counter the voters' vote on $30 car tabs.
And I would tell Sound Transit, you're spending about $1 million a year on PR and public relations, marketing, advertising.
Right.
Why don't you use some of that money to help blind people?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and don't sit there and tell me that if I want to help blind people have more access to bus service, I have to triple my license tabs. I mean, that just compounds the insult.
There's a lot of money to work with. Just depends on how you want to spend it.